Look at you guys. Thank you for the ad time support. I appreciate that. There are lots of other ways you can use points as well. And of course, don't forget, gifting subs is a great way to support the channel too. You know, that thing. So look at that. 857 out of 1,000. We're getting there. Oh, my. May I remind you that people who deny the Uyghur genocide and think that Trump would have been better for progressive policies than Biden have over 1 million subscribers on here. No pressure. I know what you're thinking. All their subscribers are too young to vote and are lunatics. Yeah, granted, but they're using their parents' money. Doesn't mean you can't too. All right, here we go. This is what I want to show you. This was kind of amazing. These came out today. Whoops. Come on now. Come on now. Buttons. Work buttons. You better work my buttons. Hold on. There we go. There's a little bit of a delay. Excellent. These are the texts, as you can read, between Mike Lee and Mark Meadows and Chip Roy and Mark Meadows. I don't know if you guys have had a chance. You've probably seen stories about them. And other venues are just grabbing little one-offs here and one-offs there. And I have the same problem with that kind of reporting. And I appreciate the fact that I think CNN got these things and therefore posted them on their own. CNN posted all of it in the format that they have with a little bit of actually addendum. So in a couple of places like this one where it says Molly likely refers to Molly Michael, Trump's executive assistant, they put that stuff in, CNN did. And kudos to them. It's a great way to do it. It's a cool way of handling it. Okay. And you know, we've taken the piss out of some Republican senators over time. We you know, fearlessly and without favor. And we've come across some pretty stupid stuff that senators have said and congresspeople. Usually there's almost like a drop-off. I don't know if it's an education thing or if it's a personality thing or you just don't have the money to run or the backers to run for the Senate if you're as dumb as some of the House Republicans. I don't know how that works. However, let's be abundantly clear. Hold on, my computer just restarted, and so everything's going to start opening up all at once, and I do not want it to start making noise in the middle of everything while I'm trying to do this. So, remind me later, go away, take this. I don't know this, not now. Please go away. And then, I don't want all these other don't open up all these other programs, you lunatics. Okay. And then, let me open up the Safari is the most important thing, because then I can go back to my pages. All right. This way I can open up my chat. Give me 1 second, and I can see you lovely people hanging out in, there you are, in all your glory. Hello, look at that. Hi, New Jersey. Look at that and all this stuff. Okay, so these, there's Louis Gohmert and MTG Dumb. I do shed pants. I do see you now. It's true. And then there's kind of like Ted Cruz Dumb, where he went to Harvard, so you know he's got no excuse. He's stupid. That's the argument. I mean, the essence is that Louis Gohmert's a moron, even though he went to law school and became a judge or what have you. Although I'm presuming that's the case, because he very well may have just been elected a judge without ever being a lawyer. I don't care. I hope for whatever the Alabama or Mississippi judicial system that they can excuse that kind of behavior, not by passing people through the legal profession and pushing them to the top of the line, but because they're like, we'll elect anybody. I'm like, all right, that'll actually kind of, then I can blame you and not the state of legal intellect in your entire goddamn state. Yeah, Gohmert's from Texas, yeah. That said, I'm speaking euphemistically, I'm being silly, but in this case of, like, there's Ted Cruz stupid and then there's Louis Gohmert dumb, right? That's where we are. Mike Lee is amazingly dumb in these texts. And not only that, Utah, you have some explaining to do. I don't know what the hell is going on in Utah. How the hell this guy, because he was always kind of a potato salad Republican, you know, just like a run-of-the-mill, not quite maggoty considered himself an ultra-conservative family values guy, but that's indistinguishable from the other pile, I would guess. And Romney was the standout from the state, and Mike Lee's just kind of this, like, stunt filler dude, unimportant to the entire process. Just kind of, like, whatever. Like, there's a lot of whatever senators and House people we don't really hear about that much. And Mike Lee's kind of one of those people. He pops up every so often, but not in a major... nothing that has come out of his mouth has ever been impacting where you're like, oh, we got to watch out. This guy might run for president one day. No, nothing. So I mean, I've known not to that, I don't particularly care for his brand of politics, but I also don't I'm not impressed by his impact. So he was like a wash. But somehow he managed, between him and Chip Roy, to be the point people with Mark Meadows, at least in terms of these texts coming out, about the recounts and all that kind of shit post the election, that he was going to fight like hell. And take a look at this. I've underlined a couple places, but we're going to go through this. Hype train, level 4 hype train on Twitch right away. Love that. Beautiful. Thank you for your support. Patrons, we love you. Patreon.com/HalSparks. Also, you can Venmo if everything else scares you and stuff. Okay, here we go. November 7th, 2020. Things weren't going well for the Trump campaign. They were 2 days into their brutal loss, and it was just getting worse by the day. In the early hours of November 7th, Mark Meadows reaches into his pocket. Actually, his hand was already there. He was sucking his teeth and shaking his change and trying to figure out a way to box up everything in his office without Trump taking a giant shit on him for it. His pager went off. Yes, he still had one. And he went over and checked his third burner of the evening. He was going through phones like some guys go through packs of cigarettes. It was one of those times. He just screamed at the ceiling, I guess I picked a bad week to stop snorting amphetamines, when this message appeared on his phone. I want to offer words of encouragement to the president. This is the best Mike Lee I can do. And have reached out to Molly for that purpose. This doesn't have to come down to a binary choice between 1, an immediate concession, and 2, a destruction of the credibility of the election process. That's Mike Lee in his effort to intelligently determine the best political and legal paths forward, offered a binary choice between admitting Trump actually lost, and destroying the government. From Mike Lee to Mark Meadows. There is a third way, exhausting legal remedies while cooperating with the transition process. At this point in the evening, Mark Meadows had taken snake form. His rattle had been stepped on earlier in the day, so he was stuck to just hissing. Process. There is, yes, you're not crazy. There is an E in process. Not anymore. If you're going to have an SS, why not have 3? That the Nazis had the SS. We're going to do them plus 50%. We're 50% more SS than the SS in our process. From Mike Lee to Mark Meadows. Please give this to the president. He couldn't email him. He didn't have his email. And Trump doesn't do email because he doesn't like the trail. So he just does text on burner phones, and then they fuck him up and throw him away. So he's like, he's not getting my shit. It's because he stopped using the regular phone. I'm sorry. He stopped using his regular burner phone for his third burner phone that day. Therefore, the president wasn't getting any of his messages from his children, which was the entire point. When this message arrived on Mark Meadows' phone, who hoped beyond hope that it would be delivered to Donald Trump. Dear Mr. President, oh shit, hold on. Let's see, what have I got? Whoops, wrong one. Hold on. Give me a second. This is momentary. Like I'm obviously we're not national anthem. Let's see. Mr. President, dear Mr. President. Hold on, back up. I got to start again. This is going to take more than words will allow. Dear Mr. President, we the undersigned offer our unequivocal support for you to exhaust every legal and constitutional remedy at your disposal to restore America's faith in our elections. This fight is about much more than just this election. This fight is about the fundamental fairness and integrity of our election systems. The nation is depending upon your continued resolve. Stay strong and keep fighting, Mr. President. Sincerely, Senator Mike Lee, Congressman Andy Biggs, Congressman Mike Johnson, Brent Bozell, founder and president, Media Research Center, Adam Brandon, president, FreedomWorks, Bill Walton, president, council of the shit. Oh, thank you. Start again. Yeah. For the National Marjorie Dannenflower, president of the Susan B. Anthony, List David McIntosh, president of the Club for Growth, PAC, Match Schlapp, American Conservative Union, Jenny Berth Martin, chairman of the Tea Party Patriot Citizens Fund, David Bozell, president for America, Tom Felton, president, Judicial Watch Seymour Fine, MD, MRC Board of Directors. With a tear in his eye, Mark Meadows continued to receive texts all afternoon. One tear. It's the same tear over and over. We're sending this private communication from us to him through you. We are not issuing it as a press release. We were going to, but the Washington Post refused to play the national anthem behind it while they typed it. It's a tear tattoo for killing democracy. Use it however you deem appropriate. And it's helpful for you, and if it's helpful for you to leak it, feel free to do so. It's not a leak, fucko. It's not a leak if you put it out on purpose. It's not leaked. He gave it to you. All right, you can't leak. You can't tell him to leak something and it's still a leak. It's an under the table press release. Huh? That's my favorite. It's when somebody doesn't answer back and you're like, buddy. Then we get okay, I highlighted this one because holy shit. From Mike Lee to Mark Meadows. Sidney Powell is saying that she needs to get in to see the president, but she's being kept away from him. Apparently, she has a strategy to keep things alive and put several states back in play. Can you help her get in? Is everybody in? From Mike Lee to Mark Meadows, after a long period of no reply. It was at the president's request that Sidney's been working on a strategy and has been trying to get in to see him, but she's being kept out. And then he sends Mark Meadows Sidney Powell's email address and Sidney Powell's phone number, followed by the words, Sidney Powell. By the way, they were stiff-armed. She'd already met with the president multiple times. And everybody was like, she's a fucking loony. Get her the fuck out of here. She's going to get us in trouble. Don't do this. And Mark Meadows is getting text from Mike Lee going, has he ever heard of this Sidney Powell woman? She's a genius. 2 days later, on November 9th, 2020, from Mike Lee to Mark Meadows. We had a steering executive meeting at CPI tonight with Sidney Powell as our guest speaker. My purpose in having the meeting was to socialize with Republican senators the fact that POTUS needs to pursue his legal remedies. You have us in a group of ready and loyal advocates who will go to bat for him, but I fear this could prove short-lived unless you hire the right legal team and set them loose immediately. Release the crackheads. Kraken, shit. Just to be clear, I don't want Eric involved. All right. Continuing. Sidney told us that the campaign lawyers, who I do not know, are not focused on this and are obstructing progress. I have no way of verifying or refuting that on my own, but I've found her to be a straight shooter. In any event, these actions need to be filed and announced in the next 48 hours, or the public relations momentum we need to have behind it will start to dissipate. Put in your mind, if you will, dear reader, that on November 9th, Mike Lee is what you would call Team Sidney Powell. That the greatest course of action is not only to get Sidney Powell in direct contact with the president to explain her plan, but to put that plan in action. Hashtag Team Sidney Powell. Hashtag Mike Lee. November 10th, 2020. From Mike Lee to Mark Meadows. I have a simple question. How many VBM ballots were tossed in PA before not meeting the requirements of state law? I can't find the stats anywhere. But in the primaries, it was above the current margin of victory with much lower turnout. If they played games with that, Trump has a really strong case. Vote by mail ballots. 9 days of anguish later, on November 19th. From Mike Lee to Mark Meadows. I'm worried about the Sidney Powell press conference. The potential for defamation liability for the president is significant here. For the campaign and the president personally, unless Powell can back up everything she said, which I kind of doubt she can. From Mark Meadows to Mike Lee. I agree. Very concerned. From Mike Lee to Mark Meadows. The temptation will be to do nothing for now. I'm not sure doing nothing is a good option. Unless Powell can immediately substantiate what she said today, the president should probably disassociate himself and refute any claims that can't be substantiated. At no point did Mike Lee recommend that the president also not talk to people who had recommended wholeheartedly that he follow the instructions of Sidney Powell. From Mike Lee to Mark Meadows. He's got deep pockets, and the accusations Powell made are very, very serious. This is out of fear that Trump will get scooped up in the Dominion lawsuits that they know are coming. Hashtag fuck Fox. From Mike Lee to Mark Meadows. This is an especially bad combination when you consider the damage that could be easily claimed and indeed proven, and the deep pockets involved. At this point, Mike Lee was still under the misapprehension that Trump was rich. Later, his recognition that the president had been faking his wealth and was actually a broke son of a bitch would not alleviate Mike Lee's anxiety. November 20th, a day later. Please give me something to work with. I just need to know what I should be saying. Two days later. Please tell me what I should be saying. Many now believe Mike Lee is the future of the GOP. From Mike Lee to Mark Meadows. There are a few of us in the Senate who want to be helpful. parentheses, although I sense that number may be dwindling. From Mike Lee to Mark Meadows. Meanwhile, we are struggling to figure out how to respond to things like this. Byron York's status, which led to this. Byron York tweeted, Powell said Georgia GOP Governor Brian Kemp is, quote, in on the Dominion scam. Accused Kemp and Georgia Secretary of State of accepting financial benefits in conspiracy to defeat Trump. Evidence? I can't give you any more details, she said. From Newsmax, 2 of 2. End. Powell. Georgia's probably going to be the first state I'm going to blow up. And Mr. Kemp and Secretary of State need to go with it because they're in on the Dominion scam with their last-minute purchase or award of contracted Dominion of $100 million. The State Bureau of Investigation for Georgia ought to be looking into the financial benefits received by Mr. Kemp, Secretary of State's family about that time. Newsmax.
Just to clarify, you say Governor Kemp, who's been a long-time ally of the president, is directly involved because of financial benefit and conspiracy to defeat the president in Georgia?
We have certainly been told that there is evidence of that and would warrant an investigation. Hey, anybody, we're actually going to do an honest investigation.
What more could you tell us about that alleged conspiracy? The governor's involvement?
I can't give you any more details than that right now, but it would certainly warrant an investigation. If it had been reported to me as a law enforcement officer, I would be investigating it steadfastly. From Mark Meadows to Mike Lee.
I'm working on it. Not sure what to suggest.
See, that's what I miss about the Trump White House. Leadership. Sorry. Shit. A day later, Mike would continue after a couple of meals and an arresting binge of House of Cards so that he could remind himself how things ought to be. Mike texted this. If you haven't watched tonight's episode of Life, Liberty, and Levin, you should do so if you can fit it in. Mark Levin makes a very compelling case for the need for litigation related to this election. Also, I have an additional idea for the campaign. Something is not right in a few states. I think it could be proven or disproven easily with an audit. Parentheses, a physical counting of all ballots cast. In case you, Mark Meadows, the Chief of Staff to the President, are unaware what the word audit means, considering you've been hanging around with Trump so long, it seems like everything's an audit. In Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Georgia, and Michigan. From Mike Lee to Mark Meadows. John Eastman has some really interesting research on this. The good news the good news is that Eastman is proposing an approach that, unlike what Sidney Powell has proposed, could be examined very quickly. Just check all the ballots for Panda Cum. Then we'll know the Chinese are involved. The China. From Mike Lee to Mark Meadows. But to do this, you'll have to ask very soon. Some believe today might be the deadline for some of this in Pennsylvania. At this point, it was beyond the ability of Mike Lee to check calendars or check in with any of the states that he was regularly on the phone with to see if they had hard and fast dates for the counting of their electoral votes and their presentation of votes to the system. Mark did not respond. December 8th, 2020, from Mike Lee to Mark Meadows. If a very small handful of states were to have their legislatures appoint alternative states of delegates, there could be a path. Finally, an answer from Mark Meadows to Mike Lee. I am working on that as of yesterday. December 8th would be known in the calendar as a crime day. But it would take a full 8 days for their conversation to continue after a series of burner phones that didn't seem to work and wouldn't hook up. December 16th, from Mike Lee to Mark Meadows. Also, if you want senators to object, we need to hear from you on that, ideally getting some guidance on what arguments to raise. I've run out of punctuation. From Mike Lee to Mark Meadows. I think we're now passing the point where we can expect anyone will do it without some direction and a strong evidentiary argument. 2 days later, the most intelligent statement from Mike Lee in his entire life was sent. Not surprising, it took Mark Meadows quite a while to figure out how to respond. And the conversation would not pick up again until January 3rd, 2021. I have grave concerns with the way my friend Ted is going about this effort. This is believed to be a reference to Ted Cruz and not Ted Bundy, as many have established, as Ted Bundy was put to death in the late 80s. From Mike Lee to Mark Meadows. This will not inure to the benefit of the president. From Mike Lee to Mark Meadows. Everything changes, of course, if the swing states submit competing slates of electors pursuant to state law. From Mike Lee to Mark Meadows. But if not, this could help people like Ted and Josh to the detriment of DJT. Note, Ted and Josh likely refers to Republican Senators Ted Cruz of Texas and Josh Hawley of Missouri. It was clear at this point that after his brilliant suggestion to listen to Sidney Powell, followed by his lightning idea to come, his razor sharp, I'll come up with something, his razor sharp idea to move back, his razor sharp idea to institute a Mark Levin policy. After the failures of those, the only course of action was to turn on his fellow senators who were engaged in the same fuckery that he was. From Mike Lee to Mark Meadows. I don't think the president is grasping the distinction between what we can do and what he would like us to do. Nor do I think he's grasping the distinction between what certain members are saying that sound like they could help him, but would really hurt him. He's got a very real opportunity for a win in 2024. That opportunity could be harmed in multiple ways this effort. That opportunity could be harmed in multiple ways this effort. That opportunity could be harmed in multiple ways this effort. From Mike Lee to Mark Meadows. Again, all this could change if the states in question certify Trump electors pursuant to state law, but in absence of that, the effort is destined not only to fail, but hurt DJT in the process. From Mike Lee to Mark Meadows. Between you and me, I fear that for some, this could be a feature, not a bug. Obviously an inside reference to the political machinations and Machiavellian goals of Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, and Q. From Mike Lee to Mark Meadows. There are plenty of others, perhaps, who are advocating this strategy with the best of intentions, but without fully understanding the ramifications. From Mike Lee to Mark Meadows. I don't purport to know who fits in which category. I only know that this will end badly for the president unless we have the Constitution on our side and unless these states submit new slates of Trump electors pursuant to state law. We do not. From Mike Lee to Mark Meadows. After receiving yet another non-answer. We should chat then. I'd love to be proven wrong about my concerns, but I really think this could all backfire badly. Unless we have the legislatures submitting Trump slates based on a conclusion that this was the proper result under state law. My lawyer and Mike, I've got a lawyer helping me tweet right now. Even setting aside constitutional concerns, this will be harmful to the president. If we don't channel this effort properly, we simply have no authority to reject the state-certified electoral votes in the absence of dueling slates, with the Trump slate coming from a state legislative determination. From Mike Lee to Mark Meadows. Reference to a Washington Examiner post where Trump urges state legislatures to reject electoral votes. You are the real power, says Trump. From Mike Lee to Mark Meadows. Should I take this as a sign that he gets it? From Mark Meadows to Mike Lee. Well, not as good as it appears. From Mike Lee to Mark Meadows. How so? He thinks the legislatures have the power, but the VP has the power too. VP but not the House and Senate? I'm not sure. From Mike Lee to Mark Meadows. Breitbart article. January 4th. From Mark Meadows to Mike Lee. Apparently, he was told that you came out with a letter against the electoral objections. I told him you were being very helpful. Bad intel. From Mike Lee to Mark Meadows. I've been spending 14 hours a day for the last week trying to unravel this for him. To have him take a shot at me like that in public setting without even asking me about it is pretty discouraging. From Mark Meadows to Mike Lee. I pushed back. It wasn't in the prepared remarks. So sorry. He will call. It's not your fault. But I've been calling state legislators for hours today, and I'm going to spend hours doing the same tomorrow. I'm trying to figure out a path that I can persuasively defend, and this won't make it any easier, especially if others think I'm now doing this because he went after me. This just makes it a lot more complicated, and it was complicated already. We need something from the state legislature to make this legitimate. That means I'm overwhelming when we can't even convene. It might even end up a majority if we're willing to sign a statement indicating how they will vote. And I've been working on doing that all day. From Mike Lee to Mark Meadows. But now, my ability to do that with credibility is impaired. From Mark Meadows to Mike Lee. So very sorry. I told him that you and I have been working it hard on his behalf. So very sorry. I told him that you and I have been working it hard on his behalf. To which he responded, what part of the body is the behalf? Shit. Chapter 2. Texts between Chip Roy and Mark Meadows. The following exchanges were sent between November 5th, 2020 and January 6th, 2021. November 5th, 2020. Chip Roy, sitting at his desk, wondering how he'd ended up with two half names instead of one whole one, sent a message to Mark Meadows, seeking strategy, confirmation, strategic and tactical guidance. We have no tools, data, information to go out and fight re-election /fraud. If you need /want it, we all need to know what's going on for what it's worth. From Mark Meadows to Chip Roy.
Thanks so much. Working on it for surrogates briefing. Congratulations, by the way.
Chip Roy, never having complained of a rigged election, had won his and was confused by all the hubbub. From Chip Roy to Mark Meadows. Roger. Yes, sir. Thanks. Now let's hold Georgia. Take as and pa. From Mark Meadows to Chip Roy. Amen. Shump. From Chip Roy to Mark Meadows. What's the message? This seems hard to sell. From Chip Roy to Mark Meadows. Any help on message appreciated. We're all just making generic statements. I don't know how many times I can go out to a podium and just say watermelon, cantaloupe, watermelon, cantaloupe, watermelon, cantaloupe, and not have them realize I'm just doing crowd filler noise from a 70s sitcom. From Chip Roy to from Mark Meadows to Chip Roy.
If observers are not present, then votes should not be uploaded. The fair and open process should be subject to observation.
From Chip Roy to Mark Meadows. Okay. November 7th, 2020. From Chip Roy to Mark Meadows. Good. Be well. If you're still in the game, dude, we need ammo. We need fraud examples. We need it this weekend. From Mark Meadows to Chip Roy. We are working on exactly that. 2 days later. I'm heading to Atlanta. Let me know what I can do. We need a message that isn't wild-eyed. From Chip Roy to Mark Meadows. If you're receiving this email, you have direct access to the president, which I do not. Or you advises someone who does. Or you advises someone who does. After many discussions with men and women in my peer group and others involved in policy strategy concerning the potential corruption of the voting process, here's my $1.27 worth, which will not get you a cup of coffee at Starbucks, but is free of charge moving forward. 1, we must urge the president to tone down the rhetoric and approach the legal challenge firmly, intelligently, effectively, without resorting to throwing wild, desperate haymakers or whipping his base into a conspiracy frenzy. I recognize, on a personal note, that's fucking impossible, but hear me out. 2, goal 1A, so I probably shouldn't have called it 2. My bad. Here's the thing. I don't know how to make a list in fucking text. Do you? This ain't a note-taking app. Blow me. Anyways, here we go. The goal 1A is to get the president reelected by counting every legal vote through recounts in states where the margins qualify and filing lawsuits in states where there is enough circumstantial voting irregularities evidence to justify the legal action. 3, goal 1B. All right. Is to expose corruption where found in a way that motivates public officials to bring about effective change of the voting process, which brings meaningful and effective election reform, allowing for every vote to be counted in an open, transparent, and fair manner to all parties. The end game for future election to all parties. The end game for future elections is for a clear winner to be declared and accepted by all parties. Sorry, I got a comma quota. 4, or if you're following along at home, 1C. Sorry. Often the narrator found the text of the script increasingly hilarious in retrospect. Looking back on things as they occurred, the statements made, the prognostications made by these fools turned out to be particularly ironic and therefore hilarious. This process must not jeopardize the Senate runoffs in Georgia by turning moderate Republicans and independents against our party. We must turn out our people for these runoff elections. I am preaching to the choir, but had to get this off my chest. We must not let the more flamboyant members of this advisory team rule the process and screw this up. There is a lot on the table for us to win. God bless each of you every day, Bill. It would turn out that they would lose the Georgia runoff elections. From Chip Roy to Mark Meadows. These folks don't get that they don't win the Senate seats. They don't fight for POTUS. They got to get a manual recount before they certify. And sex dates. You can't say sec and states that close together without it sounding like sex dates. It's just not possible. And sex dates being stubborn and Kemp won't pressure and party establishment don't get it. Note, Kemp likely refers to Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, a Republican, and not Willie Kemp, the third baseman for the Pennsylvania Eaglehawks, a short-lived minor league team that was all killed when their bus ran off the side of the road for their one away game 2 counties over. From Chip Roy to Mark Meadows. You know this, but that's the deal. From Mark Meadows to Chip Roy. We're going to do a manual recount. From Chip Roy to Mark Meadows. Got to go before certification. From Chip Roy to Mark Meadows. I fly here from Texas to help. I'm here at 9 p.m. These Georgia State GOP losers are MIA. Or MIA. MIA, when written in all caps, often refers to missing in action, a reference to fallen or kidnapped soldiers or those taken as prisoners of war who are supposed to be on the field but are not. It can also include members of a team or a squad that are AWOL. The way it's written here is obviously a reference to some woman named Mia. From Chip Roy to Mark Meadows. Only folks here at Cletus folks. Only folks here are Cletus folks. Only folks here are Cletus folks. Pardon me. And a handful of you get folks down hall. Honestly, I don't understand. From Mark Meadows to Chip Roy. Unbelievable. Pathetic. From Chip Roy to Mark Meadows. It's so infuriating. November 15th, 2020. From Chip Roy to Mark Meadows. Who is catalog / is tracking the best case for fraud / issues? Do we know? 2 days later. From Chip Roy to Mark Meadows. I'm going to object today to all the voice vote requests on suspensions. From Mark Meadows to Chip Roy. Okay. From Chip Roy to Mark Meadows. Message. We should be passing PPP and having bipartisan hearings on election integrity, not business as usual. From Chip Roy to Mark Meadows. I'm not going to, for various reasons, but we need a fight. November 19, 2020, from Chip Roy to Mark Meadows. Hey, brother, we need substance or people are going to break. November 21st, 2020. From Chip Roy to Mark Meadows. Opportunity for POTUS. November 22nd, 2020. From Chip Roy to Mark Meadows. If we don't get logic and reason in this before 11:30, the GOP conference will bolt, all except the most hardcore Trump guys. From Chip Roy to Mark Meadows. We need a controlled message ASAP. From Mark Meadows to Chip Roy. 18 days after the election. Working on it. From Chip Roy to Mark Meadows. Thank you. From Chip Roy to Mark Meadows. Have you talked to John Eastman? From Chip Roy to Mark Meadows. Get Eastman to file in front of PA Board of Elections. Chip Roy to Mark Meadows. Get data in front of the public domain. From Chip Roy to Mark Meadows. Friggin' Rudy needs to hush. That's my point of privilege. That is my favorite part of the whole thing. Friggin' Rudy needs to hush. Friggin' Rudy needs to hush. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, it would be a new t-shirt. Friggin' Rudy needs to hush. Just put Chip Roy, like a quote thing, and have Rudy with just like leaky shit coming down his face. Fuck, man. I can see the design in my head already. Friggin' Rudy needs to hush. From Chip Roy to Mark Meadows. Deadline for filing with Bo is tomorrow. Note, Bo is likely a reference to Board of Elections. Normally that would be in all caps to reference an organization using those letters. Or it could likely be that Bo isn't somehow related to Mia. Perhaps Bo is fucking Mia. Perhaps Mia is fucking Bo. We'll never know. Because Bo don't know. From Chip Roy to Mark Meadows. What's the word? November 24th. From Chip Roy to Mark Meadows. This is great! Will we get this chance in PA, AZ, GA, and we? Did we file any evidence with the PA, Bo? From Chip Roy to Mark Meadows. Mark Meadows sent this message that day.
Big news in Nevada. A judge has allowed Nevada Republicans to present findings of widespread voter fraud in December 3rd hearing. Americans will now hear evidence those on first day what happened. A critical step for transparency and remedying illegal ballots. Stay tuned!
A day later, from Chip Roy. Where do we stand, brother? Do we have anything to put out that can make the case? November 26th, from Chip Roy to Mark Meadows. Happy Thanksgiving, Mark. Stay healthy and well. Please, man. Help us together. Help us up together. Help us up together a message to go on off. Happy Thanksgiving, Mark. Stay healthy and well. Please, man. Help us up together a message to go on offense. I'm trying to piece together 11th Circuit, Nevada, PA hearing, etc., and I think there's a strong message that would be louder and better than Sidney, Rudy have been doing, but it's hard to keep up. December 21st, 2020, from Chip Roy to Mark Meadows.
Several members of Congress just finished a meeting in the Oval Office of President Donald Trump, preparing to fight back against mounting evidence of voter fraud. Stay tuned.
People would later point out about the curious nature of this tweet, seeming to show that Donald Trump was preparing to fight back against mounting evidence of voter fraud. Fight back, preparing to use mounting evidence of, Uh-huh. We're almost done. December 31st, 2020. The president should call everyone off. It's the only path. If we substitute the will of the states through electors with a vote by Congress every 4 years, we have destroyed the Electoral College. Respectfully. From Chip Roy to Mark Meadows. Give a statesman speech, and strong. That was his advice for President Donald Trump on December 31st. Historians will note it was not heeded. January 1st, 2021. From Chip Roy to Mark Meadows. If POTUS allows this to occur, we're driving a stake in the heart of the Federal Republic. 3 days later. I'm truly sorry I'm in a different spot than you, and our brothers R.E. Wednesday. But I will defend all. January 6th. First tweet. This is a shit show. Second tweet. Fix this now. Third tweet. We are. And he was lost. The Battle of January 6th claimed the life of an American patriot that day. Chip Roy defended our... excuse me, what? Oh, thank you. Let me read this. Chip Roy is still alive and still full of shit. That's good news. I'm glad. I'm good. Anyways, I guess it's a happy ending after all. That's it, kids. Those are and scene. Those are the Chip Roy and Mike Lee text. Mike Lee is a gullible asshole. The fact that he went like, Sidney Powell seems great. Sidney Powell seems crazy. Have you talked to Mark Levin? We should do this. We can't do this. I don't trust Ted Cruz. Who the fuck? Again, can we be thankful? Thank your lucky stars. Take a moment. Breathe in the gratitude and relax into the fact that the people attempting this coup were these assholes. Dumb as fucking stumps. Anyways, thank you for watching Masterpiece Text Theater. And like and subscribe. Give a thumbs up. Support the show if you're watching this later. There's links below to comment all the stuff I'm supposed to say as a professional streamer. You know the drill. Do it.